Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 16, the long-delayed episode 16. We did not do a show last week, and truth be told, based upon what happened in the last couple weeks, we probably couldn't have done a show. There just hasn't been that much going on. I do want to welcome my guest co-host for the week, Ray Carsillo. What's going on, Ray?
Not much, Shane. How you doing, dude?
Doing good. Ray is the reviews editor at EGM. He's going to be sitting in with us this week talking about all the hot topics, or not so hot topics, as it were. Had to work a little bit, even to get topics for this show after 2 weeks of being off. It really, there's always that lull after E3.
Yeah.
But holy cow,
it's been especially barren, it seems. Yeah. I think part of the reason is because Comic-Con is also E3 was a week later than normal. Comic-Con's a week earlier. So that gap between major events for the industry is shrunk. So everyone's just we're just going to wait until Comic-Con and then we'll put some stuff out. And then Gamescom. This is probably the busiest, couple of months for games if you're going to the conventions than we've had in a while.
Well, there's the Anime Expo going on right now.
Yep.
And there was a few trailers that came out of that. We actually have those curated already on Sifted if you guys haven't seen it yet. But nothing huge. There was a new Tales trailer and a couple Japanese anime-influenced game trailers, but really, really slow after E3 this year. But we do have a good show for you guys today. I promise you that. We do have 6 really good topics. Trailer of the week's not so good, though. It's been 2 weeks. I tried to find a good trailer of the week across the last 2 weeks, and you just have to wait and see what the best one was that I came up with. But anyway, we do have a good show for you today. Let's get right to it. Let's go to the Big 6. So, Ray, Nintendo, all this news has come out about Nintendo over the last week or so. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But one thing that I saw that was a big story over the last couple weeks are Steam machines. And I'm really starting to wonder if maybe the console manufacturers should start being a little more worried about these Steam machines, because Valve put up a bunch of pre-orders and they were sold out in minutes. And so they're coming out, I think it's October 10th, is that right?
So from what I understand is that if you pre-ordered, you're getting them October 16th, but the actual Steam machines themselves are coming out November 10th for everyone.
Right.
So you're getting them a month.
So I mixed it up. I had the 10th, which was from November,
Yeah, so if you get on board early, you're basically going to get the systems a month earlier than everyone else. So I think that definitely helped the pre-order, but I'm shocked as you are that they sold out already all of these different Steam machines from different manufacturers, Alienware, Cyber.
Yeah.
And we're talking different price ranges too, from $450 up to $1,400. And people are just eating them up. And as a console guy, I'm excited for the Steam machines, but I don't know if I'm willing to pay $1,400 for one.
Well, I don't think you don't have to pay that much. I saw some that are $400 or $500, right around the price of consoles.
The lower models are $450, I think, for the Alienware, $500 for the Cyber. And you're still getting good stuff. You're getting i3 or i5 inside. You're getting 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte hard drive. So you're still getting high quality products. But if you want to go for the super high end, I was looking up today, Cyber's i7, I think 2 terabytes is $1,410, and I was
that's steep.
That's pretty steep. At that point,
I could build that machine without a monitor for probably at least $200 or $300 less than that.
Exactly. So at that point, it's why bother getting the console? Why not just go get a computer?
Yeah. So. Well, I find it kind of funny, and actually it's kind of genius, because what they've really done is just rebranded the PC. Yeah. It's still just a PC. It's in a smaller case. In some cases, some of these cases are still pretty big and still look like towers. They don't all sit flat like a console.
Right.
It's kind of genius how the PC industry is let's call them Steam machines, but they're really just PCs.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's trying to bridge that gap, because half the gaming audience is PC, half the gaming audience is console. It's trying to bring everybody together and kind of, there's always been this divide, PC master race and all that, and then people who are on consoles are always been adamant about sticking with consoles. What I'm most curious about, though, is how they're going to bridge the gap controller-wise.
Yeah, well, they have the Steam controller, obviously.
Right.
Which, depending on who you talk to, it's either genius or a piece of junk. Really, the opinions have run the gamut. My experience with it was different. It took me a while to get the hang of it, but once I did, I felt like it was for PC gaming at least kind of the superior option. Have you messed around with the Steam controller at all?
I haven't had a chance to mess around with it, so I'm curious. I'm very curious to try it out, and I like the fact that they're at least offering it separately from the console, so that you can still, if you just want to try out the Steam Machine controller with your PC, it will be compatible with it. But I mean, as somebody who's dabbled with both PC gaming and console, I'm curious to see how first-person shooters and real-time strategy games and these genres that are specifically supposedly superior on a PC with a mouse and keyboard will work with this controller.
Hasn't it really, the issue with PC always been that it's kind of tethered to your back bedroom or your den or your office? And now with these Steam machines, I just find it funny how they rename it, and now all of a sudden people are supposed to feel okay about putting it next to their television or in their entertainment center.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the big thing too, right? Is that PC gaming, you've always kind of had this image of people kind of being in their basements, their dwelling. It's kind of always separate, and now they're trying to bring it out to the family area, kind of going to get into Nintendo in a little bit, but Nintendo with their Wii and the Wii U, and then obviously Xbox and Sony, they've got their systems. You can connect the cable to it. You can watch the TV. You can still. These are things that are bringing everybody together. Where the PC was always kind of about being by yourself, being separate, doing your own thing. And I think they're trying to get on board with that. Be like, no, look, PC can be for everyone too. So, I mean, whether or not people get on board with that, if that stigma of PC will always kind of stick around with these Steam machines, we'll have to wait and see. But I personally think that people are still going to end up taking these machines and going into their rooms with them and still playing them like they do a PC, because...
I mean, a lot of people do that with their consoles. Not everybody plays their consoles in the living room. I mean, some people's wives are like, no, I got the TV. And so... some people will have their own little game room, or they'll have their den where they play. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like the lines between console gaming and PC gaming are starting to blur in that regard. But really the bigger question to me is these Steam machines, to me, have the ability to take a huge market share away from console gaming. Because the one thing everybody's going to realize very quickly is that these machines won't go away. And it's like look at E3. The big announcement from Xbox was backwards compatibility. Yep. I mean, when they announced it, I was like, that's cool. That's probably a big deal. It's been the biggest deal.
That was the biggest announcement of the show for most people, was backwards compatibility, because now you have this huge library, and what Steam provides that the other consoles don't have is this constant library, thousands of games constantly at your fingertips.
You have that back library, but you also know it's future-proofed, right? You know that, it may not look as good as somebody who has a $4,000 or $5,000 rig, but chances are, you buy a Steam machine now, you're still going to be able to at least play and run PC games long after PlayStation 4 and Xbox One have been sent off to pasture, and we're playing the PlayStation 5 and whatever else Xbox calls it after that. And so it's almost a little scary to me that with these new machines acting almost as like a Trojan horse, that they could really bend the market. And you're starting to talk, I know Valve's starting to talk now about how they want to get away from using Windows as an operating system for their Steam machines. I don't know if they're planning on developing their own OS, but then that to me is a bad idea. Because then you really are turning the Steam machine into a console. It's no longer a PC and a smaller box. And to me, that's where you start to lose your competitive advantage. Yeah. In that you have this vast library of games from 10, 15, 20 years ago. Some of those games, good old games is really good at reviving stuff that wouldn't even play on most PCs now. They're kind of doing it for you. Yeah. I mean, how big of an opportunity is this for PC gaming to take a huge chunk out of the console market?
Well, it's like you said, it's really a massive opportunity if they play their cards right. I mean, if they stop using Windows, I mean, obviously Microsoft is not going to stop making games for Windows, so you're going to start ostracizing and dividing your audience. So I mean,
think about that, a split user base for PC gaming. That's something that we've never thought of or ever thought would occur.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and to do that
but see, Steam also has the cachet to do it because it owns Steam.
Well, that's just it, right? I mean, Gabe, our patron saint of computer gaming, over there at Valve is they can almost kind of do what they want, but at the same time, if they go too far with it, they can go too far with this and basically start alienating their audience and start putting these consoles, and especially Microsoft with Windows, into a better light, especially now that Xbox One, you can play Xbox One with your Windows PC.
Right.
You know, having that as that was a huge feather in their cap to get that out before these Steam machines hit on store shelves, because that's one thing that will keep them hopefully relevant. Yeah. So I mean, in that regard, I think that Steam machine needs to be really careful how they play this, because they already have half the gaming market with PC.
Yeah.
So if they start cutting that up, they may not be enough for them to survive, and that might start gravitating back towards specifically Microsoft with Windows PC and with Xbox One and that compatibility.
Yeah, I honestly don't think. I mean, look, Valve is smart, Gabe is smart. I'm sure he's thought about a million things that we aren't thinking about while we're sitting here talking about it right now. So I have total faith that Valve would never do something that idiotic that would totally split up the market and affect them negatively in any way. Not so sure at this point that he would care if it hurt somebody else. Whereas I would say maybe 10 years ago, if you asked me that about Gabe, I would have said, yeah, he would care about that. So you've kind of seen the evolution of Valve over time, not only just transferring from being a developer into a retailer, but just and also kind of how they deal with the community, and it's just been a bit of a metamorphosis for that company.
They've become more of a corporation.
Yeah.
You know, they know that they're what their brand is, what it means, and how to best serve their community, but also how to squeeze those bucks out of you. And their bottom line has become, you know, and understandably so, it's become important to them, you know, as a company. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how much that continues and how much that affects them in terms of marketing and in terms of, you know, making the trying to put the Steam machine, putting a Steam machine in everybody's home.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the first kind of clue that I had that they were changing was I saw a story about their hiring practices and how they would manage their staff. And it used to be like you would go to work at Valve and you just kind of show up and you'd walk around and meet with these different groups of people and kind of figure out where you fit in. And you just become a part of that group and you just be absorbed by them, and suddenly you were on that team, and their logic was, well, if you're doing what you love and what you're interested in, you're going to do it really well. And then I saw a story a few years ago where they're like, yeah, we don't really do that anymore, because it ended up being a disaster because people started taking advantage of it. Yeah. They would come to work, they'd try to find the group that was doing the easiest project, or they try to find the group who seemed like they weren't busy or whatever, and you'd end up having like these groups of like 50 people working on this one project where it probably could have been accomplished by like 2 or 3. So, you know, I admire them for trying to change the workplace, but it is kind of funny how ultimately human nature ends up winning the day, and you kind of have to go back to the way it shows you why things are certain ways after corporations have been in business for a long time. So just to kind of close this topic out, how do you really think it will cut into console sales? Like, I don't think this holiday season, maybe not, because I think it's going to be tough for them to get the machines out. But what about like next holiday season and like the next 12 months? How much do you see that impacting the sales of the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, and ultimately the NX, which is going to be this new console coming out that may or may not be as powerful as some of the Steam boxes?
Yeah, I think the thing with Steam is that what's going to be hard for them to make a dent in the market is because there's so many different manufacturers making all these different models that it's going to be almost, for some people, as harrowing as buying a PC, because, well, do I want the i3, the i5, the i7 processor?
Do you feel like people have gotten better with that lately, though? Because my wife just bought a new Mac, and 3 or 4 years ago, if my wife were to buy a PC or any kind of computer, I would have bought it. Like, she'd have been like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this with my photos. I want to do this with my music. And then I would make the decision for her, and I would make the smart purchase for her. This time, it was completely different. She basically bought the whole thing herself. She asked me like a couple questions, like, you know, how much does an average song like take up on a hard drive, to try to figure out how big the hard drive that she wanted was, and like, what's the processing speed of your PC, your gaming PC right now? Like questions like that to help her create kind of a scale for herself to figure out what she wanted. But that was it. Like, she made that purchase on her own, and so I feel like a lot of people have figured it out, and I think a lot of it has to do with smartphones, how people now are more invested in their smartphones, and they know, you know, how much space affects like what they can do, and processor speed and stuff like that. Like, people understand, first of all, like what a graphics card is now, and what like a CPU is, and what RAM is, and they know what it does. And so I almost feel like consumers have become better educated on this stuff, and maybe they could make these decisions now.
It's true, but I think that like, also looking at again, coming back to price point, I think
Yeah.
that the cheapest Steam machine right now that I've seen is $450. You know, you can get a PS4, you can get an Xbox One for less than that.
Oh, now you can get them like the deals that come up every day. It's like you can typically get either one of those consoles for like $350, and they'll throw in like a game or two, or like $50 PSN credit or whatever. So
exactly. So but if you like, because consumers are so much more savvy, if they, you know, they might look at it and be like, well, you know what, I want to play games, but I'm just going to get an Xbox One because it's $350 without the Kinect, and whereas why would I spend the $700 version of the Steam machine, which is what I really would probably need for that to really play the games that I want to play at the highest level of quality, when I could just get it for Xbox One or PS4 and get it for cheaper. So I think that until people figure out where what price points they want, what they're really getting from a Steam machine compared to a console, I think it's gonna definitely be a while before Steam machines can make any sort of serious dent in the market.
All right, so let's move on to the next topic, and our next topic is the NX. We didn't have to wait too long to get to it. So it came out this week that Nintendo, well, I don't even know if it came out. It was like a rumor in a story from a newspaper in Asia that Nintendo wants to basically have production of its new console ready to go basically by E3 of next year, and want to release the console by July of next year, the month after E3. Ray, one, is this even feasible? Because they haven't shown the console yet. They still haven't started manufacturing. Yeah. So from a production standpoint, do you think that it's even a possibility?
No, because I mean the rumors that they said they want to make 20 million, they want to have 20 million units ready to go. And I think that even if they were to get the 2 or 3 different technology manufacturers that they were looking at starting to churn things out now, I don't think there's any way they could possibly hit that number. I mean, 20 million units, people might not realize that's a ton of hardware.
Well, if you think about it, so far that's all the PS4 has sold pretty much, and it's sold like gangbusters. So that's, to me, is kind of a red flag, that figure, because when I saw that, I was like, okay, whoever gave them this information doesn't sound that informed to me, if they would even assume, especially after the debacle that's been the Wii U. Yeah. For Nintendo to be that ballsy and say, oh, we're going to roll with like 20... I mean, those 20 million consoles, if it was the Wii U, would still be sitting in warehouses waiting to like be shipped out for sales. So
no, exactly. I think the thing is that Nintendo, I think, they've even admitted to the mistakes they've made with the Wii U, that the consumer was misinformed, that they didn't really get in front of the product as much as they should have. They were basically relying so much on the success of the Wii that they figured, everybody knows everything that Nintendo's doing, and made a lot of stumbling blocks with the Wii U. So I think that we're showing it for the first time at E3 next year, which is when we know for sure we'll see the NX for the first time.
At the very least.
At the very least. And then trying to release it a month later would be insane. That'd be almost suicide.
That's pulling like a Sega Saturn, isn't it?
Exactly.
Where they're like, hey, here's a Saturn, and by the way, you can go buy it right now.
Yeah, no, that would be the worst thing they could do, because people were misinformed. There's no hype behind it. They know that they need to take at least a year, maybe July 2017, I could see, where they, have at least a year time behind it, informing people, telling them what's different about this console, what's special about it. And that would also make more sense, because that would give the Wii U, even though they're not, obviously it's been a flop. It's flat out.
That's the one thing I was going to bring up, is that they are in a situation that they have never been in, ever. Yeah. The Wii U is its worst selling console ever. Yeah. Even the GameCube topped 20 million. I think it actually maybe finally got to 25 million. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's around roughly what it ended up selling. And the GameCube was a huge failure. Make no mistake. 25 million was still a disaster. Yeah. So here they are sitting at like 9, 10-ish million, couple years after launch. I mean, they're desperate. And so I could see where, anytime you're trying to analyze something, you use past data, or at least you try to. And so you would say, oh, well, looking at past data, this doesn't make sense. This would never happen. But this is a green frontier right now that we're talking about with Nintendo. It's never been in this position before. It's never been in a place where 2 years after its console launched, it finally started turning a profit, and a meager one at that. Yeah. And so maybe this is desperate Nintendo, and maybe they are at a place where they've moved their production up. And then the other angle to this whole thing, and another story that came out this week, was that Miyamoto is not working on the NX. And so that also makes me, well, adds a whole other angle to this whole thing, because Miyamoto has been the one who has always driven the control innovations, and a lot of times with the Wii U even, their important thing was latency between the gamepad and the television. And that was the big thing that they wanted to focus on. And when they weren't getting it right, that's what ultimately delayed the console, but that was a lot of Miyamoto there. So he's pulled out of this.
Yeah. He's only got a very top-down, kind of very, very hands-off approach to this one,
And if he's doing that, and he's not demanding that they come up with some brand new type of interface or something like that, or some crazy new control scheme, does it become more plausible that it could?
I mean, it could, but I think that just looking at Nintendo, it'd be so unlike them to panic. I think even with as poorly as the Wii U is done, it just seems like they
never panicked with the Wii U.
They never, ever panic when it comes to no matter how good they're doing, no matter how bad they're doing. They stay the course. They are constantly, at least on the surface, always very calm. Always, they always are ready to come up with a contingency
Please understand.
Plan. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I mean, for me to think that they would allow somebody who isn't Miyamoto to come in and basically say we need to rush production on this, with so many old school guys still there, and still Miyamoto and Iwata there basically having this top-down overview on things, I don't think that they would allow Nintendo to rush into anything, especially with so much probably on the line with this next console, because they can't afford to have back-to-back flops.
But let me ask you this, though. So, E3, Nintendo's E3. In hindsight, I think maybe it did a little better than people were saying at first blush. Fresh out of the Nintendo Direct from E3, everyone was pretty much down on them. But if you look back, they did have an okay lineup.
Yeah.
And most of the games are coming out very soon. But there's not much coming out after very soon. I mean, so, by all appearances, and for all intents and purposes, Nintendo has kind of moved on from the Wii U. I mean, let's be honest.
As much as Iwata said during the shareholders meeting this week that they hadn't, everything on the surface basically shows that after the first quarter of next year, basically, except for The Legend of Zelda, which honestly I wouldn't be surprised if it got delayed so much that it becomes a launch title for NX.
Yeah.
They really don't have it. They don't have a long window. They don't have a long lineup.
Runway.
Yeah.
They're running out of runway.
Yeah. So. But, I mean, the thing is, they did the same thing with the Wii, right? When they started gearing up for Wii U, is they kind of just let the Wii's library just kind of be like, you all have the games you love, you already have them, enjoy them, wait for the Wii U now. So I have the feeling that, once the...
We don't have all the games we love, though,
that's the problem, right? Is that... But the thing is...
I mean, honestly, they're not missing much. They're missing a Metroid game, they're missing a Zelda game. They've kind of checked all the other boxes at this point, though, as long as when you buy a Nintendo console, and when you're thinking about buying it, and you finally pull the trigger on it, the list of games that you expect that you'll get to play before it's sent off to pasture. Those, it's missing a Zelda.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, unless you count the Wind Waker remake.
Which I wouldn't.
I wouldn't
either. Yeah, no.
And, it's got several Mario games.
Mario games, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, which they're supporting far after launch more than they ever have before.
And they're doing a much better job with DLC in general.
Yes. I know for a fact that their Smash Brothers DLC is doing better than anybody had ever anticipated, because people were just that right now that's the one game you have to have a Wii U for is Smash Brothers. So I mean,
there's not much left for them to really say, "Hey, we kind of did all we could."
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if, especially because it would give the Wii U a 5-year life cycle, if NX comes out 2017. That would be 2012 to 2017 would be the life of the Wii U. They kind of are doing what they did with the Wii, which are like, all right, the last year of the Wii U, it's going to sit there and it's going to collect dust. We'll do a little things. Splatoon was a surprise hit for the Wii U. Yeah. New IP, sold like gangbusters in the top 5 on the NPD for May when it was only out for 3 days.
And they're feeding that with DLC as well.
Exactly.
Free DLC.
Free DLC, constantly new, every month new modes, new skins. The Amiibos have been a huge hit for them, again with Smash Brothers and Splatoon and a couple other games. You even got a Kirby game on the Wii U that was really good.
Yeah.
Rainbow Curse. Don't sleep on Rainbow Curse.
Yeah. And they have Yoshi coming, which is getting pretty good reviews.
It looks cute. Yeah. It looks cute. I mean, like, you know what you get. You know what you want from a Nintendo console, like you said, and they're going to deliver it for the Wii U, and it's going to probably go silent for a little while, and then they're going to concentrate on building up the NX. That's what I really think they're going to do. So I'm not worried. This seems like Nintendo just kind of doing their usual thing. It's just everybody's kind of blowing things out of proportion because the Wii U was so bad.
Yeah.
So but I think I wouldn't worry, and I wouldn't be surprised. I do not think the NX is coming sooner than 2017.
So you would say, best case scenario, 2017. That is the earliest you would say you think you would ever see the.
I say early fall 2017 would be the earliest we get the NX.
Really, early fall of 2017.
Yeah, I don't even think the summer. I think that because they're going to want to get around it. They know that even though the summer's a dead time and people might eat it up because it might be the only thing that's coming out. Really though, putting it out, dropping a bomb like that in the middle of the let's say late September, early October, dropping something like that right then and there would be a huge way to also probably try and put a dent into Sony and Microsoft's holiday sales, because they're going to, like I said, I think they're going to come hard with this NX. They're going to push it really hard. They're going to make sure the consumer is informed as possible. I think you're going to get like the Warner Brothers and Ubisoft treatment where you got a trailer every day. You're going to have Nintendo Directs like every week talking about the NX, and they are going to just make sure that you know everything you want, and they're going to have so much hype going up into this console that I think that they're going to make sure it can't fail.
I would say that I think best case scenario, Q4 of next year. Like, I know people are saying July. Like, I think July is completely impossible, and I think it would be stupid to launch in July on top of all that.
Yeah.
But I do think Q4 of next year is a possibility, at least maybe in Japan, maybe not in the U.S. And I would say spring of 2017. I mean, that's not typically when you launch a video game console, but I don't know that Nintendo wants to be there in Q4 with Microsoft and Sony anyway, trying to get people to buy his console when, I mean, look at it this way, too. Q4 of next year and Q4 2017, we are going to be getting the very best games from both Xbox One and PlayStation 4. I mean, those are the golden years for those machines.
True.
And so I could see a scenario where Nintendo tries to avoid those big Q4s for those other machines, tries to find a pocket of time where they are kind of on their own and they can kind of have and tell their own story. So I would say earliest Q4 of next year, but I would say more likely spring of 2017.
Definitely, though, 2017. Sometime in 2017, I think we agree.
All right. Yeah. All right, another big story of one of the big three platform holders trying to not just survive, but thrive. And so rumors came out this week that Microsoft is in talks with trying to buy AMD. And if you're not familiar with what AMD is, AMD builds video cards, processors, things like that. Basically, they're trying to buy the PC platform. Yeah. I mean, right now, AMD's video cards are not the most popular on the market. In fact, they've struggled a little bit. They did just release new technology that they're saying once the drivers get up to speed for that new technology, it might actually be superior to the competition. There's big stories in here hidden in this. And this is the thing. It's like, oh, Microsoft buys AMD. People may not think that this is a huge deal. If it were to go through, it could be a game changer on many fronts. Where do you think it could have the most impact, though?
Oh, goodness. I mean, a big thing for this would be, obviously, it helps Microsoft not only save costs because they have AMD hardware in all their Xbox Ones, and there have been reports reporting they'll save $300 million a year. Some said they'll save $1 billion a year. I'm not a financial wizard. I don't know where exactly it would fall, but they will definitely be saving costs per console by buying them. And right now, AMD's stock is at an all-time low. Well, it bounced back a little bit after these rumors came out, but before that, they were at an all-time low. Also, AMD hardware is inside the PS4.
Yeah, I know.
That means every time a PS4 sells, Microsoft is making money. So it's basically almost as if, and Microsoft has been all about, well, when video games do well, we all do well. Well, this would definitely be a case, that scenario is that, if Sony sells something, Microsoft makes money. If Microsoft sells something, Microsoft makes money. So, I mean, that would be the big thing about this is that AMD
it's more than big.
I mean, it would be huge.
It's massive.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Sony would have to write a check to Microsoft, every month or 6 months or however that happens.
Every time it sold a PS4.
Exactly. I mean, that would completely change the game because that's Sony then's basically supporting their most, direct competitor. So, I mean, that would, for me, is the biggest story coming out of this.
And I mean, look, Microsoft's doing a little bit of that now with Blu-ray drives in the Xbox One. I mean, this is nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, Sony made a ton of money off the CD-ROM and, Blu-rays, they're making money off other devices. It's not just off of their video game consoles. So it's not out of the ordinary, but I think the magnitude of this one is huge.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think this would be far bigger than anything that we've seen before because there's so much of the hardware in both systems runs on AMD tech. I mean, again, I think somebody said that $100 worth of an Xbox One's hardware goes back to AMD. And again, I don't know. This came out in one of the reports. I think, don't quote me on this, might have been Forbes. I was looking at all the different, I never go to these.
Forbes, first of all, I would never trust Forbes.
Yeah, but I was going to all these
Just
different.
because they allow pretty much anyone to write stories, and they're a little deceptive on when you go to that site. They're not like, hey, this is just some dude who likes this stuff.
But I was looking at the sites that I usually don't look at because, I'm, again, not a financial expert here, so I don't know all these specifics of all this, but I mean, the fact that if it is that much, or even close to that much, that Microsoft has to give back to AMD, I mean, for them to recoup those costs with every Xbox One they manufacture would be a huge, huge deal for them. And then again, now, and then getting money from Sony on top of it. Like, I mean, that's.
But then also you got to think about the future. So. Let's say they buy AMD and Xbox One and PS4 run their course and they start taking money from Sony, which I'm sure they will cash those checks with a big smile on their face.
Yeah.
Then you start talking about the PlayStation 5. And do you partner with AMD again?
Yeah.
Or do you kind of have to?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the other part of it too is that AMD is starting to get really heavily involved in VR. And while the jury's kind of out on how successful it's going to be out of the gate, and, over the next couple years, I think inevitably it is going to be a smashing success.
Yeah.
And, Sony almost gets backed into a corner here where they're giving huge chunks of money to Microsoft for their next machine as well. Because, I mean, look, you're going to work with AMD on your next machine. I mean, they have the factories to be able to crank this stuff out at a cost that can keep the PlayStation 4 at the launch price that it was at, And so, you think about it now, the short term it's kind of a big deal, and it's kind of funny to see like Microsoft maybe getting payments from Sony over that stuff. But when you really look down the runway and you start thinking about, okay, well, Sony, if you're thinking about it, right now, they're probably working on PlayStation 5.
They're probably R&D'ing all that stuff,
Yep, they're doing at least like their due diligence and researching things and trying to figure out where the market's going to be whenever they're ready to release it in however many years it is when they finally are ready to do that. And they're looking at this deal. I mean, it also could delay things a good bit. I mean, it could also get to a weird case where, if you think about it, if these two, let's say the Xbox 2 or whatever the hell they end up calling the next Xbox, and the PlayStation 5, they're both getting ready to come out. And, there's a lot of times at launch you can't get as many consoles as you want. And let's say Sony does sign a deal with AMD, and Microsoft has, is relying on AMD, obviously, if they bought the company to produce its consoles. You get to a place where AMD is like, sorry, Sony, like
Microsoft's priority. And they limit the hardware then they offer to Sony to produce units.
Yeah, I mean, this could have huge ramifications.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those stories that just kind of like slides in, and then I start thinking about it and really start looking down the road a little bit at it, and I'm like, holy crap, like. It could be really smart for Microsoft to do this, I guess, is really what I'm trying to get at here.
And right now, with, again, their stock being as low as this would be a drop in the bucket for Microsoft with their cash reserves to pick up AMD. And it also goes back to before we were talking about the Steam Machine divide, because then suddenly, you have Windows PC stuff, with AMD and all this stuff. You can start, again, forcing more of a divide, being like, well, if AMD starts producing all these, like things that they said that would get them up to the speed with their competitors, suddenly now you're even talking to people more about what brand are you loyal to. You then associate AMD with Microsoft, and then you'll have Steam, and you'll have these PCs that'll then not, they'll have to probably not be able to use AMD stuff without having to kick something back to Microsoft, even if they do get their own OS. Yeah. So, I mean, there's on both sides of the fence, Microsoft would really position themselves in a position of power, of huge power, that if they were to take AMD on board, which again it would cost them. I think the company was estimated at $1.8 billion, which Microsoft
seems like not even close to what they should be valued at.
No,
AMD to me should be worth way more than $1.8 billion.
Yeah, but that's what they're being estimated as, and Microsoft has cash reserers.
Dude, they could save that. Yeah. They could get that money back in like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be nothing for them. It would be such a huge. It'd be an amazing short-term investment, but it would be a game-changing long-term one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's move on to yet another controversy in the industry. And this is coming from a game that just can't seem to get away from it. Destiny has had a rough couple weeks here, Ray. I mean, really rough.
Yeah.
I mean, the first issue is the Taken King's price. They're basically asking, it's $40.
$40, yep.
For what amounts to an expansion pack. And obviously fans bought the last expansion pack for less, but still were not happy with what they got. I mean, I don't think anybody was happy with the package that they got the last time with DLC. So they're looking at the Taken King and they're saying, well, wait a minute, we paid less last time and still didn't get our money's worth. So, and honestly, if you really look at what they got with the last expansion, it wasn't much.
No.
It seemed like it was hyped up a lot more than what they ultimately delivered on it. And so, understandably, Destiny players are a little nervous over this. And then, to make matters worse, a guy who used to be a video game journalist, I don't know if you knew him or if he was before your time, but a guy who used to work in games, I believe he worked at IGN. He's now like the creative director at Bungie or the community man. I can't really remember what his title is. He does an interview with Eurogamer and just basically loses it and becomes very combative and a little antagonistic at times and just, I mean, ultimately just gave Eurogamer a lot of attitude and basically said, like, look, when these people see what we're giving them, they're going to be happy with it, and that's that. Well, the fact of the matter is, with the last Destiny expansion, the exact opposite happened.
Nobody has been happy with this game yet.
You're right. Like
in terms of whenever they release a DLC or a new raid or anything,
the base game even.
Exactly. There's just been so much backlash with it at every phase. What makes you think Taken King is going to be any different from anything you've released in the past? I mean, I'm still amazed at how many people I know who still are playing it and grinding it because I gave up on it a while ago.
Yeah, I did too.
It just, I mean, it's not nearly, they did not deliver on anything they promised at any phase of it in DLC or, like you said, the initial game.
Or the base game.
Yeah.
I mean, the base game fell really short. Like, if you go back and look, could be true of a lot of games where you say, look at what they promised initially and what the game ultimately was, but in the case of Destiny, it is really true, man. Like, they said they were going to deliver this epic, like, story intertwined. It was like, there was, like, nothing to the story.
It was the most bare-bones narrative I've played in a game like that in forever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for everything they had promised, it'll be MMO level, style, it's going to have these, we're going to have this amazing backstory, and you can't wait till you find out what the Traveler, what's it doing on Earth, and all this other stuff, and it just was like, and everybody's, all they still talk about is Wizards on the Moon.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the big thing.
Well, then there's, like, the Queen, like, they never really, that storyline never went anywhere.
No.
Like, there's been a huge letdown. And so for Bungie to take that tact with its fans and its customers is pretty bad. Bordering on deplorable in some ways, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can never ostracize your fan base like that.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing to me is that 20 million people have played this game.
Yeah,
I can't believe it.
No, I can't believe it either because I didn't like it. Anybody on our staff liked it. It was.
There are some people, I mean, look, there are some people that are still playing this game and they're still grinding it. I'll see them on Twitter being like, booting up Destiny again. I'm just like, what are you doing?
There's literally nothing better for you to do out there.
I don't get it,
Like,
man.
seriously, there's nothing better. There's so many other games out there and you're still grinding Destiny?
Yeah, I don't get it, man.
Like,
I really don't, but they are. There's a lot of people. Like, there's a whole podcast on IGN that's just for Destiny of people that are like that. They go home every night and play Destiny again.
I can't do it. I got to level 18. I played every mission on the initial game, and I said, why am I going to grind to level 30? There was nothing there for me.
It was also completely unclear to me how you got to level 30.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, you go here and then you get, like, light stuff. And I'm like, light? What? Like, where has that been the whole time I've been playing this game?
Their systems and the explanation of it is some of the worst.
I feel like the game is just so far over my head at this point. Like, look, I played that game. I finished that game. I played the multiplayer for dozens of hours.
Yeah.
And when people talk about Destiny, I don't know what they're talking about. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, I was at E3 hanging around a couple of journalists and they were talking about Destiny. I couldn't even join the conversation. Like, the words and the stuff that they were using, I was just like, did I even play this game?
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I hadn't played it.
Yeah. No,
It's just veered off into this weird, like, uber niche.
Yeah.
And maybe it's smart and they have the numbers to crunch to know whether it's smart or not. And maybe they're playing to their fan base and that's what they should be doing at this point. Like, I don't know. All I know is as somebody who played this game to completion and played the multiplayer components a great deal, I have zero desire to go back and play this game. Yeah. I feel like I'm completely lost in it now. Like, I have no idea what I would even do if I started playing again. I feel like I'm intimidated because I feel like everybody's been playing it, and if I were to jump in, I would just get annihilated in the multiplayer, and I would get annihilated in the raids and all the other stuff. Like,
well, that's the worst thing, right?
They ostracized a lot of people who played their game. Yeah,
that's the thing. With this is not a game that if you can't jump back into it after taking a 6-month break or whatever.
Or maybe you could, but I'm just completely petrified of the thought of it.
It doesn't come across that right. It doesn't come off as a game that you could do that. So I mean, it's that's just been the horror thing, the horrible thing. And the Taken King is just the latest on top of this pile of absolute failure in terms of relating to the widest audience possible for it.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I don't know if they're doing this whole thing with Red Bull.
Yeah, nice segue.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's just like, so I mean, I don't know if people have heard out there with the Red Bull debacle where they're putting codes for one quest on Red Bull cans. But
so you get a quest that other people won't get until January. So you get access to, they call it a multi-part quest that you'll get now, and then everybody else will get it for free in January. And then you get a 30-minute XP boost per can, I believe that's
per can. But the thing is that already on GAF and on Reddit, people have already found ways to crack the codes. So you don't have to buy the cans. You just go to these forums. You get the code simulator, and you can just put it in. So there's all these Red Bull cans out there now that are worthless.
Yeah.
I mean,
other than the Red Bull that's in them,
which to me is already worthless because I can't stand the taste of Red Bull.
I'm addicted to Red Bull.
Oh, I'm not a fan. I'd rather drink my own urine than drink Red Bull.
Red Bull's helped me survive the last 3 months. I'm not even kidding.
Call me old school. Just give me a cup of coffee. I can't do Red Bull, dude. But yeah, no. I mean, so yeah, you're just basically buying Red Bull and you go in to put in the code and it's worthless.
Yeah.
Because the code, it's such an easy simulator. It's already been cracked.
Yeah.
So that's just another thing that for Destiny where they've let their fan base down.
Yeah.
Or
at least their fan base that went out to buy a can of Red Bull.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to yet another controversy. Another one. This one is for Metroid Prime Federation Force.
Talk about letting your fan base down.
Yeah. But I want to just start with this by saying that I think people are completely overreacting. Like, I get it. It probably shouldn't be called Metroid Prime, or it probably should be called Metro, or maybe they could get away with just calling it Metroid something.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they should have done, is just called it Metroid, because there is, like, the ball mechanic in this game. But, come on, man. Like, you start a petition to cancel the game?
Yeah.
Not, like, rename it or rebrand it, which still would be kind of silly.
Yeah.
It's, no, cancel the game.
Yeah.
They started this petition. Only 10,000 people had initially signed it. I think it's up to, like, 12,000 now.
I heard 12,000 was the last number, yeah.
And how ridiculous have, these petitions gotten, Ray? Like,
we are a rage-addicted society at this point, and every little thing that doesn't fit our perfect idea of what somebody who gets paid a lot more money than we do to think this stuff through, it's because it doesn't fall into what we think they should do, it automatically means we have to flip out, we have to throw a hissy fit, we have to throw a temper tantrum. And it's just, first off, we have no idea if the game is actually any good or not because we've only seen the trailer.
Well, no, I mean, they've shown a ton of the game. Like, the Treehouse did, because it only had so many games to show at E3, the Treehouse actually ended up streaming, 3 hours of the game. Actually, they did that with every Nintendo game at E3. Usually it's, their Treehouse at E3, the year before, they do one demo of each game, and maybe for the very biggest one, they do, an encore.
Right.
This year, they did every game, every day. So there actually is a ton of footage of this game out there. Granted, a lot of it's of the same levels and things like that, but there's a lot out there.
Okay, so I mean, all right, so it's still though, until you actually play the game, until you actually, and even if it's not what you wanted, you can't flip out to the point where you're demanding people's jobs and their livelihoods just because they didn't provide something that you want. You know how you protest this game? You don't buy it.
Yeah, that's all you have to do.
You don't buy it. It's simple.
I've been saying that to our viewers for years. It's you can just vote with your money. That's all you have to do.
And that will get a lot more attention to Nintendo than this 12,000 petition or the 74,000 dislikes on the trailer on YouTube. It's a 9-to-1 ratio almost. I think it's 74,000 dislikes to 7,000 likes.
Even Reggie this week came out and admitted that the reception has not been what they had hoped.
Yeah. But I mean,
he also said, like, trust us. Like, we know what we're doing. Like, you know, you've loved us all this time. Why would you not love us now over one 3DS game? I mean, that's the other part of it, too, that I think just makes it ridiculous. Is, like, I could see a little more ire if it were a Wii U game where they're going to have to invest, like, tons of money into the game and, like, you know, they have this massive team working on it. But that's not the case here. Like, they have probably a 20-guy team working on this game, max, I would say. That might even be generous. Like, probably 10 or 15 people working on it.
It's a small section of Next Level, who's a developer.
Yeah, I mean, it's not taking away resources from them finishing Zelda U. Like, it's not taken away from the next Mario game for NX or whatever. Like, it's this little side project that they're trying to fill in holes in the 3DS's, like, release schedule right now, because that is the one platform that's actually making the money. So, you know, I don't fault them for making a Metroid game for the 3DS, because it'll sell probably 3 times the amount of copies. Well, maybe not now. Yeah. But it would have sold 3 times the copies that it would have sold on the Wii U. So, 1, I get that. And 2, like, you know, I don't have a problem with them putting Metroid on it either. Metroid Prime, a little dicey.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is that you have all the enemies from Metroid are in there. The Metroids are in there, all the creatures that you're used to fighting, a few new ones. I mean, but it's a spin-off.
Matt, what was the joke that you made before we started recording about the Federation Force?
Yeah, I was basically just said, you know, I've never played a Metroid game and come away thinking like, wow, that was great, but I sure wish I knew more about the Federation. Like, people are here for Samus, people. Yeah. And, like, I really think part of the problem is, like, people have been waiting for a new Metroid since Other M, and this is what we get. Yeah.
And they've also said now that, you know, we're probably not going to get a Metroid until the NX. I think the other part of it, too, is that there was just so much buildup because, you know, Retro had done that little tease leading up to E3 where they pointed to Nintendo's E3 page, so everyone kind of assumed that, and myself included, that they were going to show a new game there. They didn't. They didn't show anything.
Retro wasn't there at all.
And so I think that built people's hopes up that, oh my gosh, you know, we're going to see a Metroid Prime as a swan song for the Wii U. And so it's almost like a double whammy. It's like, we didn't get the new Retro game. We're not getting a Metroid game for the Wii U. But we are getting a Metroid game, and it's for the 3DS, and it doesn't star the star of the franchise.
Samus. Samus isn't in it at all. It looks almost a little cartoony, like in terms of its design. Like, it's not nearly as serious as the previous Metroid games. And then you've got this ridiculous. I guess maybe what the.
I think it still looks fun, actually. Though that's the crazy part. Like, I'm actually still excited to play this game.
Yeah, I mean, I want to play it. It might not be a bad shooter, but I mean, of course, shooters on the 3DS aren't. It's not exactly what the system is known for.
No, for sure.
You know, it doesn't have.
You'll need that Circle Pad Pro, probably.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have the exploration aspects of Metroid that people really love. And I think that also I looked at the multiplayer mode and I think, oh, this is what Mario Spikers. This is what that left of Next Level's 2014 canceled game. Maybe that's what it is in the multiplayer mode, because it's like soccer with a shooter, though. You know, so I mean, I don't think of 4-player co-op when I think of the 3DS either. Which was another big thing they were touting. And I think, I mean, sure, Monster Hunter, and there's a couple of games out there that really, you know, support it. But otherwise, the 3DS has always kind of been more of a solitary experience, and I think that would have made it perfect for a Metroid game, and which, again, people have been starving for, and this just is not anything that people expected and not what they wanted. But again, the best way to go about saying that you don't want something is just not to buy it.
Yep, and I have a feeling that might happen for once.
I think that no matter what you brand this game as, you could say this is Metroid Prime, Legend of Zelda, Super Mario.
All in one.
Yeah, you know, exactly, 3 in 1, and I think people will still turn away from it.
Yeah, that seems to be the prevailing opinion right now anyway. So, okay, for the last topic of the Big Six, Nolan North. The guy does not know how to keep his mouth shut.
He had a big mouth.
So he does this panel, and I don't know if you watched any of the panel. Very informal. He's just kind of sitting there on a table. Yeah. It almost looked like it was a yard sale, and he's just like taking questions at his yard sale or something. It's very weird. But the guy just starts talking. He talks about like Assassin's Creed. And how, like, UB originally had one plan for it, and how it ended up flying off the rails, and he was unhappy. Like, first of all, I'm just saying he was unhappy with how it turned out. Yeah. After he worked for them, and they had paid him probably copious amounts of money. Then he starts talking, and someone asked him a question about The Last of Us, and he basically spills that, well, I don't even know if you call it spilling it, because I think we all assumed it's happening, but there is a sequel to The Last of Us on the way. And then the voice actor from Joel, Troy Baker, comes out and says, "Oh, I don't know about all that." Well, we'll get into this in a minute, but I don't know if he would be involved in the project anyway. So, anyway, I think we could all assume The Last of Us 2 is coming. Whether his information was legit or not, eventually there's going to be a Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
And so, in light of this, let's talk about what we want to see in a sequel to The Last of Us. Ray, what was your biggest criticism of the first game, would you say?
Oh, my biggest criticism of the first
If you have any.
I mean, no, I'm just trying to think back. I mean, the biggest thing I think was there was so much... It felt like there was so much gunplay. Like it seemed like every few moments there was no chance for it to explore and really get into what had happened to this world. It just seemed like you were always moving from point to point, from gun battle to gun battle. So I think if we did a Last of Us 2, when it does happen, I would like to see a chance for more exploration, maybe a wider, maybe not a full open world, because obviously with the detail they had, I mean, of course, though, with PS4 instead of PS3, they might be able to really build, or PS5, depending on whatever it may come, really build a true, open world that had been taken over by the clickers and all this. But, it's where it's not always having to just action scene, giving the characters a chance to breathe, and giving you a chance to really take in this post-apocalyptic kind of world that you're in.
What did you think about the AI? Because to me, I mean, look, I talked about this even before I left GT. Like, one thing I hoped with this generation of consoles would be that AI in games would get better. Mm-hmm. In all honesty, The Last of Us was one of the games that made me really think, like, hey, we can do better than this, and we need to do better than this. Because, when your whole game is set up around, like, hey, let's not get caught by these crazy, I guess zombies is probably the easiest way to describe them.
Yeah.
And you're standing right next to one, and it doesn't see you, and it doesn't know that you're there, and then Ellie's running out into the wide open, and they're not recognizing that she's, like, to me, that broke, like, a lot of the tension and the immersion from that game. And it wasn't just The Last of Us. This happens with every stealth game, or pretty much any game where the enemy isn't supposed to know you're there, or is supposed to know you're there, based upon your location. So, to me, I feel like AI and enemy awareness would be one of the first things that I would hope that they would improve on.
Yeah, no, definitely, I definitely agree with that too. And I think also for player awareness, the fact that Joel had detective mode basically, like really was just like a huge thing that broke. It pulled me out of the immersion so much because I'm like, how is he like psychically detecting where all the clickers are? Like that was just like I think also broke some of the tension because you knew where the enemies were at every given moment because you'd have been stupid not to use the detective mode. I mean, they gave you this tool for a reason, but I think it broke the tension. It made the stakes lesser in each confrontation, and so I think upping the AI and the awareness, and even if you have to introduce new clickers, which I think we would get in a sequel.
Sure,
but also I think making sure that the players are, not to the point where you're dying every second, but you're also depowered a little bit. That you're in a situation where you're having to overcome the odds. That this is truly a situation that you don't want to find yourself in. Whereas, no matter what ammo you had or what bottles you were throwing or bricks or distraction, you never really felt like you were not going to beat this situation. You always knew you were going to find a way to overcome. Even if you took a couple of tries, you knew you were going to overcome it. And I think that, depowering the players and upping the strength of the enemies would be definitely a huge thing I'd like to see in a sequel.
I would also just hope that Ellie has learned how to swim by the second, because also that was like, near the end of the game, like 9-10 months have passed. I'm like, you didn't just spend a day teaching her how to swim in like one of the rivers you found or something?
Those were some of the worst puzzles in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
And even the characters are like, here we go again. I was like, get on the thing. Here we, the drill.
It's just, no, exactly. It was kind of ridiculous. But that brings to the point, and possibly kind of going to what Troy Baker was saying, is Last of Us 2 doesn't necessarily have to follow Joel and Ellie.
That's
again.
what I was about to say. It's like that, that may be a moot point because honestly, do we want it to be Joel and Ellie in the next game?
No, I think we'll see them, but I don't think we'll be them.
No, I don't even think we need to see them. I'd like to see it in a completely different location, other side of the country. Stick us in the swamps of Florida or something.
Yeah, but you think they'd be able to resist like like
bumping into them somewhere.
Like 60-year-old Ellie in like some place you end up like, oh, this is old girl, and someone calls her Ellie just as you leave.
Oh, at the very least, they'll do something like that.
She really was the Last of Us, like.
But I mean, their story's kind of told. I mean, look, it's not completely told. They're both still alive,
right? But
seriously, I mean, until they're dead.
The narrative, it had a full narrative arc that, whether
and the DLC even showed kind of what happened before they met up. And,
right, exactly. Fleshed out Ellie a little bit, as a character. I mean, but I don't think you need to reopen their story. I think it closed. I think whether you liked the ending or you didn't, I mean, I think it's a moot point because it's over. Their story is over, and I think you follow different protagonists.
Is that a smart move financially, though? Because look, I'll guarantee you Naughty Dog spent probably $200,000 or $300,000 just focus testing these characters and making sure that they resonated with people and that they were characters that people cared about. And then you spend a whole game kind of building that love and that. I mean, look, I felt for those characters big time, like probably more than any game in the last several years. I mean, I really was a part of what they were experiencing and going through. Like, I felt it. Like, and we'll get to Batman in a bit, but that was a game where I didn't feel anything for the people that were in the story. And in The Last of Us, I felt not just even for them. Like, I felt for the people that they came into contact with and the bad positions that they were put in. I mean, look, a lot of that is writing and timing and just hitting all that stuff perfect, which Naughty Dog does really well.
Yep.
But can you flush all that down the toilet now? All that you've built up. And look, you could do it again.
Yeah.
But, you would be going against the video game grain, which I have no problem with at all. In fact, generally I revel in stuff like that and want it and look for it. But when you're talking about a game that's going to cost you $100 million to make or whatever, or more, who knows, if it comes out next gen, expenses could go up even more. So when you're talking about that type of a financial risk, you think they'll do it?
I want them to do that. I want them to let Joel and Ellie's story go away. But seeing your point, I mean, I think that it would be easier for them to keep Joel and Ellie around. But then you get into all the complications of, like, you could do this whole thing with their relationship because obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, but obviously the end of the game was, it was a big deal that Joel and Ellie both survive. We'll just put it as that.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do, unless you did something that might be interesting, is you only follow one of them. Like where it comes out and like she leaves Joel or leaves Joel behind and Ellie goes out on her own or something happens to Joel. That might be a way to kind of do both.
Well, they kind of did that with the DLC because the DLC was pretty much all Ellie.
Right, but that might be a way to kind of like please that audience. Is like you still have Ellie, but you leave Joel behind, and maybe Ellie's 5, 6, 7 years older now in this world, forging out on her own, knowing that she's special in some way because obviously she can't get infected.
Yeah.
And then she goes to you could do this whole build this whole background to her because she's special because she's not infected and then
Can they go away from Ellie with that fact, knowing that she's one of the people? And look, they did say, like, I don't want to spoil too much, but there were others like her.
Yeah.
And so she's not one of a kind, but, I mean, she is one of few.
Yeah.
And so can you go away? Does she need to be a part of the story because she is the linchpin of possibly beating this thing?
I mean, the only way you go away from it is if you bring somebody else who is similar to her and that that person cannot be infected. But to do that again would just be rehashing the story of the first one, I think. And I think then you get into, it becomes repetitive. It becomes, we've played this before. Yeah. So I think if they do bring back any of the characters, I think they just bring back Ellie and just follow her.
Joel will probably be dead anyway.
Well, exactly. I mean, he's an old man. He's like slowed down. You could even do a nice opening cutscene where he gets taken down by a bunch of clickers or something. A nice cutscene.
Kick it off right.
Yeah. It'll be emotional, right? It'll be like right from the beginning, like really have
just rip your heart out right out of the gate.
Exactly. Instead of waiting for halfway through, like they did with it's like they didn't wait halfway. They did it right at the beginning of Last of Us too. But,
that's right.
So I mean. I think that doing that again would be pretty kind of fitting and kind of have Joel maybe killed off in the beginning of Last of Us 2, and then Ellie goes out on her own and has to survive and
Find a new partner, maybe.
Find a new partner. Yeah, make alliances. Maybe have a whole system where you
recruit people. Yeah,
exactly. You know, I mean, you could do this. You could
form a gang.
Make it almost RPG like, and kind of push the envelope with it. But you could do a lot of different things with The Last of Us 2. I mean, but if you do stick with Joel and Ellie, I think you just stick with Ellie.
All right. All right, that does it for the Big Six, our trailer of the week. I'm finally going to tell you what it is, and it is for King's Quest. King's Quest is an episodic adventure game, a revival of a classic, and this is the trailer for the very first episode.
Come in, Gwendolyn. I hope this old cap will be remembered for far more than the action tattered across its brim, sewn into the seams of many hidden adventures.
Tell me everything.
Hey, it's Graham the Wise.
When I was a much younger lad.
You look like a compassionate fellow.
Before I was a knight.
Greatest knight in all of Daventry.
Before I'd been to Daventry.
I see braveness in those eyes.
It's a tale about a tournament that changed my life.
Hello. Apologies, I'm late. I should be on the list. First name Graham, last name...
Welcome, everybody. You are all here to win a knight position on King Edward's court. Each knight hopeful will need to bring back to the theatre, dum-dum-dum-dum, one eye of a hideous beast. We want to know what's in your heart, how you think, and how you react in the face of danger. No adorably cute, fuzzy, or tiny creature eyes will be accepted.
Nothing to see here.
Now, everyone, go forth and claim thine eyes.
That was amazing.
All things considered, it was a pretty good first day in Daventry.
Pretty excited about that game. How about you, Ray?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited to see what the Odd Gentlemen are doing with it bringing back episodically like that. And like you mentioned before we threw the trailer, it's a classic.
Yeah.
To see it come back.
King's Quest was one of the very first games I ever played.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, it was like... There's an old game, man. I don't know if you've looked at the King's Quest, man, but they look really crude nowadays. So, yeah, I just dated myself a little bit there. But, I'm excited for that. I hope that they don't ruin, like, the nostalgia that I have for the series. That's always the danger when you bring something back that's been a classic over all that time. But now we're going to shift our focus to our deep dive. We did see all your comments yelling at us for spoilers. Come on, man.
The game's been out for a couple of years. PS3, PS4.
And we also still were very, very prudent about what we said about The Last of Us.
We were pretty vague.
If you haven't played it yet, or you're in the middle of playing it, we really didn't ruin anything for you. So chill out on giving us crap over spoilers over The Last of Us. The game has, if you haven't got on it yet, that's your problem, not ours.
Yeah.
You should have listened to everybody when they told you to play it. So... Next, we're going to move on to Batman Arkham Knight. Our game eval went up this week for the game on Sifted. Did you review the game for EGM?
Yes, I was the one who reviewed it for EGM. We gave it a 6.5 out of 10 on our.
Well, that's basically exactly what we gave
on our score. Yeah, we do it. We have a half point scale. So 1, 1.5, 2.5. 3.5, etc. 10 being the best. So yeah, we gave it a 6.5. We do it where 5 is average. So it was a little above average, but I think when you look at it compared to Arkham Asylum and especially Arkham City, to say it was anything less of it's nothing less of than a disappointment. Like I came into this, I wanted every moment to be where I was going to be like crapping my back boxers, right? Like I was going to be going absolutely crazy for this game,
crapping your underoos,
exactly, and just being like. Yes, it was supposed to be this great culmination of this franchise that they had set up so many great possible storylines that they could have put a really nice, bow on here. And they really, I think they did nothing short of dropping the ball, in my opinion, especially in terms of the story. I mean, it really feels like not having Paul Dini, who of course has written over the past 25 years, from Batman the Animated Series to some of his comic book runs, and of course in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, some of the best Batman stories that have been written over the past 2.5 decades. And the fact you got rid of him and then had it done by Sefton Hill and his group, you can definitely see that there was a severe drop-off, in my opinion, in terms of the story.
Yeah, see, I thought the story was pretty much god-awful.
Yeah.
And I think we gave it like a 5, and a lot of the people in the comments in our game eval were like, oh my god, how could you ever give it... I mean, the story was pretty terrible. It's like, the more you think about it, the worse it gets. Like, if you turn your brain off and, like, play this game, sure, like... maybe it's kind of enjoyable, but the more you think about it, it just breaks down. There's so many holes and things that make no sense whatsoever. And Matt's going to get in on this conversation. He's been playing it.
I got some things.
Matt is a big Batman fan, and obviously he knows games really well as well, so he's going to jump in here with us. But I mean, first of all, let's talk about the Batmobile, because the Batmobile is the most polarizing thing in this game, hands down.
Yep.
I mean, I would say 80% of the reviews for this game, I could sum them up in one sentence. Awesome game, hate the Batmobile. Awesome game, hate the Batmobile.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed the Batmobile. Like, up until the end of the game, where they send you into these gauntlets where you fight like 80 tanks at once. It's like, but up until that point, I mean, the whole last act of the game kind of turns into a grind. Like, not just that, but like the hand-to-hand battles, kind of the other mission types kind of go away, like the detective stuff goes away, and you just get caught in this web of like, Batmobile fight, brawl, Batmobile fight, brawl. And so it started to wear on me there, but up until that point, like, I actually really enjoyed the Batmobile. I thought it broke it up really nicely.
I think the Batmobile plays fine, more or less, for what it is, but I don't think it fits the game. Like, I don't think, it doesn't feel like what Batman would do. It makes these really weird excuses.
It doesn't fit the franchise, you're saying.
Yeah, the franchise. It doesn't fit like if it was like a Dark Knight Christopher Nolan like game, maybe I would buy it, but I just don't buy him having this giant tank that like, and then like you hit a guy and it like electrocutes him, like you're supposed to think like you tased him, I guess, but like I knocked him 80 feet.
Get over the Batman can't kill people thing. Like, it's just ridiculous. It never made sense in the comics, and it doesn't make sense in a video game, especially. Like, you're running over somebody at like 200 miles per hour and they don't die? Like,
no, he's just sleeping. It's just
what?
It's little things like that weren't a problem in City and Asylum, where like even it's like things like the fact that he talks to Bruce Wayne's butler and Bruce Wayne's CEO on a giant like pop-up video gauntlet, and everyone's calling him Bruce and Mr. Wayne on this comms channel that the Arkham Knight has already like compromised, and then he gets the new suit and he just changes into it like on a rooftop.
You gotta also remember, he's doing all these like broadcasts with these people in public, where any thug in practice, there's probably a thug like 10 feet away.
Like Lucius has the Wayne Enterprises logo behind him, like a newscaster or something. You're like, oh, I wonder who he's talking to. You know, it's like And it's weird how to me it really parallels the Nolan trilogy, where it's like, you've got Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, great movies. People argue about which one is better, but I don't think anyone's wrong. It just depends which one did it for you more. And then you get to Dark Knight Rises, and everyone's like, huh.
Yeah. Like, I enjoyed it, but it was like, eh.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it was good, and there were good parts, and like it's like Arkham Knight. I'm enjoying the Batman stuff. I just wish I didn't have to take a break to play Battle Tanks 4 every once in a while.
Well, I mean, even that, especially like by the time once you upgrade your grappling hook to a certain point, you don't even need the Batmobile anymore.
You're faster than the car.
You're flying. You're basically flying around Gotham.
Well, I don't think you even have to upgrade it to be faster than driving the Batmobile. Honestly. No, but I think even if at the base level of it, you're still faster than driving the car.
But I think this also gets to a thing where we have a problem in game trilogies, it seems, where it always seems that people just don't know how to wrap up the third chapter because they want to, usually the second game ends on some kind of cliffhanger or some kind of major epic moment. Batman did it. A lot of trilogy games have done it. Gears of War, God of War, always, Uncharted, and then the thing is then you want to have the third game. It needs to find a way to be bigger and better and raise the stakes. when you don't have to. And I think that this game fell into the problem that all of those franchises had, where they tried to cram so much stuff into this to try and raise the stakes again, that it became too much, and then because it take away from the story. The Batmobile wasn't nearly as balanced in terms of the gameplay as it should have been. Because it does, like, early on, I enjoyed the Batmobile. And then you get a tipping point in the story where it's like, why am I in this all the damn time?
Yeah.
So I think that it's part of it. We have a problem in games where we think that every sequel needs to be bigger and better than the last one. And what happens is that instead it detracts from what you did with the first two games.
Well, think back to Cliff Bleszinski. Was it Gears of War 2 where he's like bigger, better, and more badass? Like, that is the mentality, though, of the developer. Like, he's basically telling you, this is how we think about it when we're going to do a sequel. This is what we want to make the next game like. And it's like, I don't even know if fans want that. Like,
all I needed was City times 2. I needed, and then instead, my thing, with it is, the Batmobile breaks the flow of the gameplay to me, because one of the appeals of the other games is that Batman is a self-contained, puzzle-solving, dungeon-beating, thug-punching machine. And it's like Samus or Link, where you get, a new item or new ability, and then you get to the next area, and then, you have to think laterally to use that new ability to kind of solve what's thrown at you.
So, Matt, we have a comment here. It says, Batman used a tank in 1987. This is from Juan X Solo.
I know. I've read Dark Knight Returns. Well, but this is not the story.
He says, you don't know anything about what fits for Batman. You are out of your depth here. First of all,
dude, I've been reading Batman since before you were born.
One thing I can tell you without a doubt is that Matt Kyle is never, ever...
The Dark Knight Returns Batman is not the Batman in this series.
Let's just see, right?
Let's have a bat off between you and Juan X Solo and see who wins. That would be quite entertaining.
I'd rather finish what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because the idea of him being this self-contained character that gets better and better at getting through these essentially dungeons, and now you have to get the Batmobile to come in here and take do the remote piloting of the Batmobile. It takes you away from that kind of self-contained badass idea. And I never wanted to have to use Link's horse to solve
pressure plate
puzzles in a dungeon, and I don't understand why.
Dude, the platforming,
Batmobile platforming.
There's Batmobile platforming in this game. It's funny too, because I started playing. I got the game
Also, the Dark Knight Returns tank used rubber bullets, not a 60mm cannon.
Yeah. I got the game, I think, the day before it came out or whatever, and so I was already starting to see some reports on the game of the Batmobile, and people were complaining about it. I saw some comments on Twitter about it, and I started playing the game, and right out of the gate they give you platforming in the Batmobile, and I was like, oh, I get it now. I'm like, oh my god, if I have to do this all the way through the game, this game is terrible. But as it turns out, that was the only place where you really had to do that. One, you put it at the beginning of the game. There's so much wrong with this game's just base design. It's the first thing you do in a game should be a building block that you learn from so that you use that later on in the game. It shouldn't be some weird thing that you never do again.
Some one-off mechanic. Yeah.
That is insane. How does Rocksteady do that? How is that even possible after making two great games that you just completely lose the fundamentals of game design for the first section of your new game?
And that's a good point in that, the Batmobile never evolves.
No.
A Batmobile section at the beginning and at the end are basically the same except for a couple, an EMP or whatever.
I hardly even use a lot of that crap.
You get all the extra stuff, but the thing is, you don't really need to. You never need to really use the EMP. I used the EMP I used once, which was to get one Riddler trophy. That was it. That was the only time. I mean, it's just such a miscellaneous way to use it, and to make it critical,
I would say that about the whole freaking game. Is the whole game is bloated. You don't use hardly any of the... I never even touched most of the categories you could level up by the time I finished the game. I think I probably upgraded 25 to 30% of, the stuff that I could actually upgrade because I just found, base armor. I'm I always want to be tougher to take damage. Or attack... I didn't care about the little minutia stuff. It's cool that it's there.
Yep.
But the gadgets, a lot of the gadgets you use once and you never use them again.
They were out of ideas for the upgrades, I think. At one point I had 37 upgrade points, And I
nothing
didn't
you
feel
wanted
like
to
I
spend it
needed
on.
anything else. I thought Batman was fine at that point.
Now, let's stop beating up on the game so much. Because, look, at the end of the day, I gave it a good score, and so did you. So there are redeeming qualities of this game. What was one of the things that you really liked about it?
Well, again, what they did great in the first 2 games, I think, was the combat and the Predator rooms. And I think that those sections in Arkham Knight are better than ever. The Fear Takedown in the Predator rooms, I've never enjoyed the Predator rooms more than in Batman Arkham Knight. It really made me...
It imparts a lot of strategy into the combat.
Exactly. It really made me think a lot more about what I was doing, whereas the first 2 games, the Predator rooms, as Batman, I felt very underpowered, actually. I felt like I would take one thug out, and then I would just kind of swing around a bunch of times, and then go down, take one thug out, and just rinse and repeat for 20 minutes.
Right.
Here... I would take a thug out, and I would use that thug to lure a bunch of other guards to him, then use the Fear Takedown, and then I would actually find myself using a lot of the different new mechanics they introduced to the Predator rooms to make them more dynamic than ever, and the Predator rooms were far better designed. They're not just squares with gargoyles everywhere. A lot of them, there's one I think that was at a train station where it's kind of an open roof, and you had all these different levels, and you're hiding under stairways, and they really added a lot more nuance and levels to that. And then with the combat, I really loved being able to interact with the environments, really finding new ways to extend my combos. I was putting together 60, 70 hit combos a lot more frequently in Arkham Knight than I did in Arkham City or Arkham Asylum. And I just found
taking a step back, though, does that really make a whole lot of sense? Batman doing 70 hit combos?
Well, not really, but I guess when you put 35 thugs on the screen, it kind of works.
No, I'm saying it works within the context of the game, without a doubt. Yeah. But going back to what Matt's saying about, is this game really Batman?
Yeah, where are all these armies of henchmen coming from?
Why don't
they just strap guys to the drone so he can't blow them up because he doesn't kill people?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Arkham Knight wins. He just solved out how he beats Batman.
It is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played.
Oh yeah.
Certainly on a console.
It is gorgeous.
It is a gorgeous game, and on console at least.
On the console at least.
Well, yeah, I mean...
We haven't even talked about the whole PC debacle with the game.
I mean, there were a smattering of bugs on the Xbox One, and I have talked to folks who played in PS4. But yeah, the PS4...
I had one crash on PS4, straight up crash, just totally locked the system up. But otherwise, I had no falling through the world bugs. But you had some.
I fell through the world a couple times in the Batmobile, especially when you have to drive in the ceiling for some of the Riddler challenges. Where you have to go. I would actually start just kind of going around because it was hard to kind of get the right sweet spot when you're doing that. And then one time I was doing it, and I just kind of kept going like this and fell off into the abyss somewhere. And I was like, okay, well that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I don't. I think the Batman stuff outside the car is all really good, and they've evolved it well. It feels, like you said, it feels very organic. The scale of the city is insane. It feels so much bigger than City. And he looks awesome. The new suit has all these cool little tricks it can pull off, and I just it didn't I felt like about half of it wasn't what I wanted, and half of it was what I wanted more than anything else, and so I'm torn on it. And somebody on NeoGAF made a post that basically said it's like playing something that's really good, but it should have been great.
Yeah.
And that's
I said that in my gaming bow. I'm like, it's a great game that just fails to reach excellence for a number of reasons. And look, we got to start wrapping it up a little bit. So let's move on and talk about the PC version, because there's more to talk about there than just the fact that PC version wasn't good and it was broken, because it's come out now that Warner Brothers knew that the PC version was in trouble well before the game came out, months and months before the game came out, yet still released it. I cannot understand the logic of this. So the game's broken, and you're sitting there and they're like, okay, it's not done, and should we release it or not? Somebody's sitting there with their finger on the buttons, saying, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? I do. But when you do that,
Yeah. You're dooming half your
yourself.
audience.
You're dooming yourself because you know what's going to happen. You know when it goes out there, people are going to freak out. Steam just instituted refund.
New refund policy.
Just in time.
Yeah.
That was vindication for that program right there, wasn't it? That's we had debates on this show about it. Is it good? Is it bad? No, it's good because it just saved a bunch of people money on this game. And so that is just deplorable to me. That WB would knowingly send this game out, kicking and screaming in the state that it was in. It's still pretty much unplayable. They did finally put out a patch. Just by the size of the patch, I knew it wasn't going to fix it. It's like 70 megabytes or something. It's like, no. You got a lot more work to do than that, brother. So, what do we think about this? Like, I've never seen this in my entire time in this industry. I've never seen this happen.
No, for them to knowingly know that it was not... For them to knowingly, like you said, send it out there that it was not ready to go... I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just delay the PC version. Like, I mean,
what's the big deal?
GTA 5 comes out where they stack the releases, where you have the consoles first, the PC later.
Yep.
I mean, obviously that's
much later in that case.
Yeah, and it still does fine. I mean, this is Batman. Guess what? Batman fans, they'll wait.
Yeah, they will.
They'll wait if it's
especially when they know that what they're going to get is going to be the best looking of all of them.
Right. The only thing is,
you would assume,
the only reason why I could think that they would be willing to push this out there in this state is that they knew this was not as good as Arkham City or as Arkham Asylum, that they knew it was going to test lower. It wasn't going to be, although somehow still got all the 9s and 10s that they wanted.
Well, Matt was saying that it was focus tested, and they ended up actually, believe it or not, they actually cut Batmobile out. Like, because their focus testers were saying there's too much Batmobile, so it could have been worse.
I mean, the fact it could have been even more bloated somehow than it was is mind-boggling. But I mean, the fact is that they were afraid that would have hurt their PC sales if people didn't like it on consoles. Because obviously with GTA 5, everybody was, when Rockstar, they know when they put something out that they can do stacked releases because everybody's going to go crazy for it. This, the only thing I can think of is that they weren't as confident in the game overall, and so they were like, let's just get it out there, and we'll try and apologize and make up for it later, which, I mean, for some reason
that's a whole lot of work, man.
But for some reason, it's been the MO of game companies now the past, year, right? Assassin's Creed Unity, Halo Master Chief Collection, Drive Club.
They've figured out that you can do pretty much whatever the hell you want as long as you apologize.
Yeah.
That is it's like one of those relationships that you get in when you're a teenager or whatever, and you're dating this girl who's treating you real bad, but you like her so much that she does something bad to you again, and she says, "I'm sorry," and just like a sucker, you go crawling back.
Yeah, you melt, and it's just oh, okay, whatever you say, sweetie.
Exactly.
But that's the only thing I could think of is that they saw. Previous games had kind of done the same thing.
Yeah, Unity was terrible.
Again, also especially on PC.
But
we all remember the
one
face
thing
melting.
I would say about that, though, is I do think you're starting to see a little bit of backlash for Assassin's Creed over Unity, because Syndicate is not tracking anywhere near where the other... I mean, I can see it in the numbers on Sifted. I can see what people are gravitating towards, and I've never seen an Assassin's Creed game get less interest than this one. I mean... we curate something for Assassin's Creed, and it's like crickets. People are like, meh. And I kind of agree with them, not because of what happened with Unity, because I always feel like giving people and developers another chance, but it's just the game itself, to me, just doesn't have that hook, and it's just not particularly exciting for me personally, but... yeah, so, maybe they should have looked a little more closely at Ubisoft and said, well, hey, it actually hasn't worked out that well for them because they have this behemoth franchise that's now kind of struggling to get traction and is coming out in a couple months. So, I don't know. Maybe gamers aren't as forgiving as we're saying that they are. Maybe they just say that they're forgiving, and at the end of the day, they do what you said earlier, and they bet with their money.
That's the hope, right? That's, again, at the end of the day, that's where we as consumers have the most power. Yeah. When you buy something, I mean, unfortunately, obviously, I don't know what Rocksteady's next project will be. I don't know if it'll be with Warner Brothers. I don't know. I mean, supposedly this is the end of the Batman Arkham franchise. Although, I'm sure.
Come on, we both finished the game. We know that there's another game coming. It won't be from them. Somebody else will pick it up. Probably the guys who made Origins will start making. Goodness. I know.
Well, they had a lot of the opposite problems that Rocksteady had.
It could have been the whole plan all along, and that's why they did Origins. So when Rocksteady was ready to pass the torch, they had one game under their belt, and they could learn from it. And we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's going to do it for episode 16 of GameFace Sifters. Thanks for tuning in. To everyone who's watching it live, I know it's a holiday weekend. I know it's late on a Friday night, and you guys probably want to be out partying with your friends or sitting around a bonfire or a barbecue or whatever. So we do appreciate you guys taking the time to spend your Friday evening with us. I want to thank Ray also for coming in and sitting in with us. You did an amazing job, man. I had a blast talking to you about games today.
This was a lot of fun, dude. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, maybe we'll have you back again sometime. Big thanks to Matt for jumping in on the combo today. And also want to mention, to the guy that we kind of laid into a little earlier, Juan, it was nothing personal. We're just having a little fun. So, Juan, thank you as well for tuning in. We appreciate it. The show will be up, archived on the site in a little bit, not too long from now. I do want to say, everybody have a very safe and a very happy July 4th weekend. Make sure you have somebody else light those fireworks so you don't lose any fingers. So, with that, GameFace episode 16 is up, and it is out.